you know how much I respect you, but let's be honest here.
I don't need to be corrected, and I don't need to be told I'm dishonest, Karen. But by all means, go ahead.
I didn't say it. I said let's be honest with the American people here.
I am.
So, well,
you ought to try
CR that I'm doing it right now, brother.
Listen closely. This is The Tell. Scott Jennings joins Caitlyn Collins on CNN to debate a government shutdown Republicans could end today. And right on cue, the blame flips. Not toward the party holding the votes, but toward Democrats. That alone tells you a lot. This isn't just a debate, it's a pattern. MAGA-aligned voices like Jennings, reinforced by Speaker Mike Johnson, insist the chaos is bipartisan, even when the leverage is one-sided. When power hides behind confusion, accountability disappears. We've seen this before. The shutdown becomes a prop. The talking points get polished. The goal isn't resolution, it's perception. And Karen Finney isn't just debating policy here. She's pushing back against a narrative meant to make dysfunction feel inevitable instead of deliberate. This is where democracy meets denial. One side deals in facts and consequences. The other performs outrage while benefiting from the stalemate. That's not leadership, that's theater. Watch closely who answers the question and who redirects the blame. Because facts still matter, even when they're inconvenient. If you believe the path forward is built on progress and inclusion, hit that subscribe button. Let's make this community the strongest voice for democracy online.
White House is arguing today.
Well, the president did try to bring them into the room the other day, and they wouldn't budge. I mean, look, the facts here are pretty simple. The Republican Party has put on the floor and voted for a clean, continuing resolution, no changes. These are Biden budget numbers, by the way, and numbers that Democrats have voted for 13 times. Nothing up our sleeves here, Caitlyn. They're trying to keep the government open long enough to negotiate things like the health care issue, which you were just debating, which I actually think maybe Republicans will wind up dealing on that. But they're not going to do it under duress, and they're not going to do it under threat of rolling back all the Medicaid reforms that were done this summer. So I think President Trump tried to bring the Democrats in. And at the end of the day, I think the American people know here they're looking at two parties. One's trying to do a bunch of funny business. One's trying to keep the doors open. And right now, I don't think the funny business side is winning in the eyes of the American people.
Karen, what's your view on that?
Well, I just want to correct something. You know, Scott, you know how much I respect you, but let's be honest here.
I don't need to be corrected, and I don't need to be told I'm dishonest, Karen. But by all means, go ahead.
I didn't say it. I said let's be honest with the American people here.
I am.
Well,
you ought to try
CR that I'm doing it right now, brother. So the CR is that the Republicans have proposed is actually not clean. It's pretty dirty because it includes the $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that the American people themselves have made clear they do not like. So it is not the same. I think it would be a very different moment and conversation if literally we were talking about what was passed in 2024. That is not the actual fact of the case. The fact of the case is that the measure is something that, again, the American people themselves have said they do not like. The other piece of this is, I think Democrats have a clear, concise message in terms of health care. Think about this. Republicans are on the side of saying we have to protect these tax cuts for billionaires. That's going to impact the wealthiest 1%. Democrats are saying we want to protect health care for over 20 million American families. And I agree with what, I was glad Senator Smith pointed out. I also just got my email today about my health care and choosing a plan. So people are already seeing that their costs are going to go up starting in January 2026. So I think Democrats feel pretty strong about this because the politics have changed. And, the last thing I would just say on this, my first government shutdown, Scott, I know you've been through a few of them too, was in the Clinton administration. And the kind of backslapping, oh, we're just joking that we heard from the vice president today. Well, we heard that from Newt Gingrich, and he was, bracing for the fight. And we all know how that worked out. I don't think the American people like seeing the president make light of their health care or their jobs.
Scott, you want to respond?
Yeah, sure. Look, we're stunned. I'll just be honest with you. We're stunned. The Democratic constituencies are principally immigration populations and government workers. And right now, you're putting.
I'm a Democrat,
you're
and
putting,
I'm not an immigrant, and I'm not a government worker.
You're putting
Scott,
one on
so
top of
yourself.
You're putting one on top of the other.
My mother is a Democrat.
You're
She's not an immigrant. She's
your
not
party,
a government worker.
This is what your party relies on, and you've closed shop on
That's
government
a lie, and you know it.
in Washington D.C. And eventually, they're going to get tired of it. There is no reason
you're saying
this
the
government cannot be left
Americans
open.
who voted for.
Here's where the moment turns revealing. Scott Jennings bristles the instant honesty is mentioned. And that reaction tells you more than the exchange itself. Because this isn't really about being corrected by Karen Finney. It's about who gets to control the narrative, especially on a high visibility platform like Caitlyn Collins' CNN panel. Watch the contradiction carefully. Scott Jennings repeatedly positions himself as the composed, reasonable voice in the room, whether he's debating Karen Finney on Caitlyn Collins' show or appearing regularly on Abby Phillips' panel. But the approach never changes. Deflect, reframe, spin, not to clarify facts, but to muddy responsibility. That's not principled debate. That's strategic misdirection. And this is where the psychology matters. The indignation isn't spontaneous, it's performative. Acting offended creates the illusion of credibility. It shifts the focus from what is being said to how unfair the challenge supposedly is. So when Jennings claims the president wants everyone to come together, he conveniently omits a crucial truth. Donald Trump is actively pressuring Republicans not to negotiate. Scott Jennings knows this. Leaving it out isn't accidental. It's tactical. This is how disinformation survives in polite media environments. You don't need to raise your voice. You calmly repeat a false premise, adopt a tone of wounded civility, and imply that anyone pushing back is being unreasonable. Over time, confusion replaces accountability, and the audience is subtly trained to accept contradiction as normal. And that's the deeper issue for democracy. When influential pundits like Scott Jennings treat dishonesty as just another communication style, facts lose their anchor. What appears to be confidence becomes camouflage. What sounds measured becomes misleading. And viewers are expected not to notice what's missing. So keep watching closely. The smirk isn't the story. The performance isn't the substance. The missing truth is.
For Kamala Harris, we're all immigrants?
No, I'm
that's
saying
not true.
I'm saying I'm listening to Democratic arguments about most policy issues, and I'm looking at Democratic energy, and it mostly has to do with things to do with immigrants, illegal and some legal, and things to do with government bureaucrats. And right now, you're putting one of your constituencies out of business.
Can I say one thing, which is that people who are in the country illegally cannot get these subsidies that we're talking about?
Sure they can.
No, they can't.
No, they can't. It's federal law, Scott.
Who do you think pays when they go to the emergency room? It's the Medicaid
Scott,
emergency program.
Going to the emergency room is not getting an Obamacare subsidy.
You guys are conflating.
Healthcare,
You guys
Scott.
are conflating these issues.
Scott,
You're conflating these
and
issues.
You're being dishonest with
the
the
subsidies are a separate issue. The Medicaid program cuts are a different thing.
Right, but I'm talking about
Medicaid
subsidies.
and the Obamacare stuff are two different issues. And I said the subsidies may get negotiated over time. But what Democrats want to do is roll back what the Republican Medicaid reforms were. They want, look, I don't understand why everybody's so mad. For time immemorial, Democrats have argued that it's good. It's good for illegal immigrants to get Medicaid. Every candidate for president in 2020 raised their hand for it. In the big, beautiful bill debate, they argued it was good policy. I can't believe there's an about face in the Democratic Party on it today.
Hold on. I got a question for Karen, but Scott, I will say, people who are in the country illegally also can't get Medicaid.
Sure they can.
Law.
Sure they can.
They can't get Medicaid.
They also
Medicare,
can't register to vote. They also can't register to vote, but we just found one in Maryland who was running the Des Moines school system.
Oh my God, one!
I mean, I'm telling you, you guys say these things can't happen, and then they happen.
Scott, but I'm just saying it's federal law. And
you can run cover. You can run cover for it if you want, but they do get federal tax money. They get federal tax money. Ask Jake. He had it on today.
I'm just saying it's against federal law to do that.
It is.
Good luck
Karen, can I ask you, because one thing that we've heard from Democrats over the last several months is that the president's consolidation of power is dangerous. That's how Democrats have framed this. But now what House Speaker Mike Johnson, the point he was making here last night, is that Democrats have handed the president more power by shutting the government down, because now they're canceling and stopping these contracts and saying they're going to fire a bunch of federal workers during this period. Was that a mistake in your view?
Well, but again, the president, it's a choice that the president can make. I mean, governing is all about choices, right? The leader of the country can say, hey, I'm going to protect cuts for billionaires, or I'm going to make sure over 20 million American families can get the subsidies they need to afford their health care and not see it double. And by the way, Russell Vought is not someone who, this government is, we know they're going to doge their way through the rest of the federal government anyway. I don't think there's much credibility in saying, hey, we're going to use this to lay people off. I mean, I just want to consider, it's a different pot of money, but think about the optics. The White House confirmed to Fox News today that the construction of the Grand Ballroom will continue while they are talking about laying people off and potentially firing people. That is outrageous. If you're serious about negotiating, as the senator said, you don't do things like that. You say, we are going to bring everybody to the table. Let's see what we can get done. And Scott, part of the reason this issue around the ACA credits, as the senator, I think, pointed out, there's not a lot of credibility here. So let's act like adults. Let's come to the table and stop making threats about, we're going to fire these people and we're going to, you know what, you're the leader. It's your job to bring people together.
This is where performance becomes reality. Scott Jennings is the perfect MAGA spokesperson, not just in what he says, but in how he acts. He sums up the persona perfectly. Smug, self-assured, always smirking. Watch the video closely, and you'll see the cues, the raised eyebrows, the deliberate glances. It's almost choreographed. You wonder if he has a friend backstage saying, "Tonight, raise your eyebrows 3 times. That'll send the message." It's subtle, but it's calculated. On Abby Phillips' show, he turns his head, then locks eyes with the camera, mugging, smirking, projecting confidence while hiding the absence of substance. And then there's the content, the narrative Scott Jennings and MAGA push over and over. The claim that undocumented immigrants are getting Medicaid? False. They know it's false. But it works as messaging because it taps into fear and misunderstanding. The reality is far simpler. Under a Reagan-era policy, if someone who is undocumented ends up in the emergency room and cannot pay, hospitals are reimbursed through Medicaid. That protects the hospital, not the patient. It's a safety net, not a benefit for undocumented residents. Scott Jennings, like the rest of MAGA operatives, repeats the lie anyway, because repetition masks reality. Karen Finney cuts through it. One case does not equal a system, and the same pattern shows up with voter fraud claims. MAGA pundits love exaggeration. They cite isolated incidents, then imply a national crisis. Billions of ballots have been analyzed. Not even 1% shows anything actionable. Genuine fraud exists, but mostly among Republicans. And even then, investigations are quietly abandoned when evidence doesn't match the narrative. This is the core of propaganda. Confidence over truth, performance over policy. Scott Jennings isn't just spinning facts. He's creating a worldview where viewers feel informed while being misled. He'd have fit easily into historical media machinery, alongside propagandists in 1940s Germany like Caroline Leavitt, repeating misinformation as if repetition makes it reality. On CNN with Caitlyn Collins, it looks polished and calm, but it's all strategy. And that's the point for democracy. We can't let style obscure substance. Watch the person behind the smirk. Look at what they leave out. Look at who's really served by the stories repeated over and over, because propaganda only works if people stop asking questions. So here's the takeaway. Scott Jennings' performance is not harmless. It's designed to shape perception, hide accountability, and normalize disinformation. The smirk is the mask. The missing truth is the message.